Hey folks, it's Nick Granville. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I thought I'd do an interesting comparison. This is my Deluxe and my Bassman side by side. Now neither of these are Fender amps, but they're built to spec as close as possible. These are both made by the Victoria Amp Company in Chicago, and Mark there makes them as close to the originals as possible. I bought both of these, they're both killer amps. Very different and probably not what you're expecting, right? And I'll get to that in a minute. So the process here is I've put an SM57, I've kind of just put it at somewhere in between the two amps. And the reason for that is it's very hard to get the exact same spot on a speaker, right? And I could run them through the same speaker cab, but then that kind of destroys the differences between the two amps, right? So the Bassman, right? 4 10-inch speakers, 45 watts. The Deluxe in this case, 20 watts, and sometimes 15 watts, depends on the type of manufacturer, and a 1x12 speaker. Now I'll give you a couple of sounds. This is the Bassman. Now this is the Deluxe. The surprising thing about these two amps for me is that you would think the bigger amp is the bigger sound, right? It's not the case at all. The Deluxe has this low mid-range thing that's kind of fat and round, and whereas the Bassman having 10-inch speakers means it's bright, right? But because it has 4 speakers, it means that those 4 speakers are also impacting the sound in it, so it's big and bright. Whereas the Deluxe is really like a fatter mid-range sound. So I'm just running these both clean at the moment. I'll go to mid pickup. This is the Bassman. So you'll see tonally they're quite different. Now, why have both? Why, right? You might be thinking to yourself, why have both? Why not just take the Deluxe to all the gigs? Well, there's a thing that happens with the Deluxe, right? It gets to a point and then it just won't go anymore. It just starts distorting more and more and compressing, and that can be desirable. But for me, a lot of times I play clean, right? And then that's a lot of times why I use pedals. Now, there's nothing worse when you hit that ceiling and you can't go any further, and you're on the gig and you're like getting swamped by the band, or the conductor says, hey, can you turn yourself up for that solo? I need more. And you're at the top. You got nowhere to go. And that's the thing with the Deluxe. Like, there is definitely that ceiling, but in the right situations, it's killer, right? Because that fat mid-range kind of takes something like a Telecaster and makes it sound round and bold, right? And then the Bassman, by the same example, if I'm running that at low volume and then I try and hit it with drive pedals, it doesn't sound good, right? It kind of becomes fizzy. And the reason for that is that the pedal is hitting a dead clean amp. I like to have the amp at the edge of breakup. So the Bassman's really good on a bigger gig, but not so great on the smaller gigs. So you can see why I have both. Smaller gigs, I'll take the Deluxe or rehearsals, and bigger gigs, I'll take the Bassman. Of course, I use my Fractal as well. My Fractal, probably the FM3 is probably the thing that gets the most use out of all my gear. All the videos you hear on here, except for these sort of comparisons, is all the FM3. If I'm going to use the FM3, I'll take a Fender FR10 or some kind of FR speaker, or my in-ear monitors, or some kind of solution to monitoring, because that's really important. I think that's a big part of why people struggle with modelers compared to these real amps, is that they kind of look at the modeler and they go, oh, how am I going to monitor that? And then they get crappy monitoring and then they wonder why it sounds like crap. Let's try the same thing. This time I'm going to crank them up. It's going to be loud. So I've just turned both amps up onto set between 6 and 7, and yeah, they'll be loud. This is the Bassman first. And now the Deluxe. Now I'm going to turn them both up on full. Wish me luck. So as you can imagine, at those sort of volumes, it's really painful to be in the same room as them. They're like a couple of feet from me. But hey, in the interest of comparisons, there you go. An interesting thing that people don't talk about with the Bassman is, I believe it's a 2 ohm speaker load, or maybe it's 4 ohm. I'm not particularly sure. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's 2 ohm, like a super reverb. And the Deluxe is an 8 ohm output. And the thing with the Bassman is you feel it has this like immediacy about it because of that. Like it's got this punch that's just powerful. It's a powerful amp, right? It's probably my favorite amp. I mean, Desert Island would be to have 2 vintage Bassmans or Victorias, because they're as close as you can get, and just have them at the ideal volume, which is about 6 or 7, right? And then hit it with dry pedals. That would, can I do that on my gigs? No. Pretty much even the biggest stages I do, I can't get away with that. And the smaller clubs, probably the smaller clubs is where I can get away with a bit more volume, because at that point people don't really care so much. It's not like you're blasting into string players or those sorts of things. Anyway, hey, look, I hope you found this useful. My name's Nick Granville. As I mentioned, I'm a guitar player based in Wellington, New Zealand, so please like and subscribe. All that stuff helps. Analytics, as you'll hear from almost everybody who does YouTube, shows that most people aren't subscribed. So subscribe and be a cool guy or girl. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Cheers.